Hello, this is JW Greenbaum bringing you a special episode of knife-related content, unrelated to the Gaining an Edge series, but still very much knife content, and, well, you'll find this in my special episodes playlist, not my playlist of Gaining an Edge episodes. So, this knife is the Grandway model 5058, and I haven't unfolded it yet for a reason. That is because this is the latest traveling knife. I got this from J.O. Ventures Outdoors. If you haven't checked out his channel, you're really going to want to do that. He's got some great Swiss Army knife content, some great leatherworking content, and let me tell you something right now. He is a very, very talented leather worker. He made this sheath for this knife. But as you will soon see, well, let's just say that this sheath deserves a much better knife. Anyway, let me read his letter. So, hi JW, it's been so awesome to get to know you through YouTube. Love your channel and your live streams. Here is the traveling knife, the Grandway, and the custom sheath I made for its travels. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to your videos. All the best, John. P.S. I included some goodies, swag, for you. Enjoy. And indeed, he was not kidding about that. He really did include some very, very useful and very, very awesome stuff. For instance, I got this, he added this Ozark Trail 60-foot tape measure. This is something where, I mean, as someone who EDCs a measuring tape, this is awesome. This is definitely a keeper. So there's that. There are 2 stickers from North Star Knife Reviews, who, by the way, Ray over at North Star Knife Reviews also supplied this knife. So he was the one. Thank you very much, Ray. The keyring that John made with the logo of his channel. This is really, really cool. And we also have a Yuko, I believe that is, set of utensils where what you do is you just take the paracord and you take that off so you can get a, just give me a second. Okay. So you can get a fork and a spoon, or indeed you can turn this around and you can get a plastic knife, which actually is pretty good. It's serrated. I actually did test it. It does work. So that is the important part, and there you go. So very, very cool stuff all around. Also, he included a bottle of hot sauce for me. Unfortunately, I have a very, very sensitive stomach, so that I will pass that on to Ray over at North Star Knife Reviews, because Ray, believe it or not, is actually getting this, not Tom over at Knife Delights. There is a reason for that. Tom does know this, by the way, and it has nothing to do with him and everything to do with the knife, unfortunately. And again, I am sorry about my sinuses, but there's only so much you can do. So let's take this. Again, this is really lovely. And move it up here. Here is the box that the Grandway 5058 came in. And interestingly enough, the company, Grandway, is located in Ukraine. They are located in Odessa, to make it a little bit more specific. And they are not a manufacturer. They are basically like, I don't know, think of them kind of like you would Cabela's, you know, where they get stuff in and a lot of stuff gets rebranded in addition to, you know, and sold as the store brand, or Walmart would be another thing, except imagine if Walmart only sold knives. But they have a number of companies that they deal with and a number of OEMs that they deal with. Which is to say that you can find Grandway knives that are made by the following OEMs: Gonzo, Sanrenmu, Kangku, CH. Surprisingly, that one kind of threw me for a loop. Like, that's kind of their top of the line. And Master Cutlery. So that's 5 OEMs that they deal with regularly. And by the way, there may be a 6th, because I recognized some Spyderco clones of the Spyderco military that you'll see on like AliExpress and some other places, where unfortunately they will add in, you know, the actual marking saying Spyderco. These do not actually say Spyderco, they say Grandway, but I think the OEM is the same. So I don't know who that OEM is, but clearly they also deal with them. So that's a total of 6 OEMs. So they're dealing with a lot of different people. The thing is that when you deal with a lot of different people, obviously you're going to have some really good OEMs. I mean, personally, I have nothing but good to say about companies like Gonzo, about companies like Sanrenmu, about companies like CH. These are really good companies. Their knives are not going to let you down. Their products are perfectly good. But I mean, I've even had good experiences with Kangku, so there you go. I mean, I realize some folks do have some mixed experiences with Kangku, and I think that's because they have multiple OEMs, like they have 2 or 3 OEMs, but all of my Kangku knives have been fine. Full disclosure. The other thing, though, is that, as I said, they deal with Master Cutlery. Well, Master Cutlery has, and I don't know if they are the same OEM or if they are different OEMs, but I believe they are the same OEM using 3 different factories. Those factories are their modern folders, including this one, their slip joints, and believe it or not, their modern fixed blades, and their traditional fixed blades, along with some of their heavier stuff. So, you know, if you're buying Master Cutlery, you're really buying from three different factories. The factory that makes their locking folders, let's just say there have been some serious attempts to really try and analyze it. Like Love Them Knives really tried his best to give them a fair shake. And then there have been some decidedly less serious, like Nick Shabazz with the Z Hunter, because yeah, that totally is a product that is made by Master Cutlery. But generally speaking, you know, you had instances of knives that maybe 1 in 6 would have the locks, would have the lock work and, you know, work perfectly, and the other 5 would have some issue with the lock. Unfortunately, this is one of those other 5. So let's open this up. And by the way, this does look like a Buck 110 with all wood handle scales. But as we can see here, the opening slot has actually been copied from Bear & Son. I found that on their folding hunter, so clearly this is a copy of Bear & Son. Now this is a fairly handsome blade, I will give them that. This is a handsome knife in general. Indeed, you even get a lanyard hole, something that you don't really do with a an average Buck 110. So let's actually compare this to not only a Buck 110, but, well, a few of its competitors. First, this is actually the most recent knife that I have gotten in. Let's compare it with a Buck 110. So we can see that this is actually larger than a Buck 110. By the way, in case you are wondering, well, maybe this is making its debut on YouTube because I don't think I've seen any other one of these. This is a Buck 110 Stealth Run in Magna Cut. No, I have not tested it yet. I will indeed test it and will report on it to you folks. Let's just get it back in the pouch right there. So, next up, we are going to have another very well-renowned copy of the Buck 110, or really a competitor, but for all intents and purposes, this was basically considered a copy of the Buck 110. And that is the Schrade Uncle Henry LB7. And as a matter of fact, we can actually see that the handles seem to be a little bit closer to the LB7. Obviously, the blade is not quite as long, but there you go. The LB7 obviously has been sold as the Bear Paw. It is a great knife. I love this one. And of course, this one is an older one. Yeah, Schrade Uncle Henry LB7. Okay. So, very, very nice knife. This one is from the early 1980s. So let's just put that back into its sheath. Next 2 knives I am about to show you are not going to have sheaths. So the first one is, and this one I did restore partially. This is a Klein 44037. It is a little bit smaller than the Buck 110. This was a Seki City, Japan made backlock. And by the way, it has a great Aussate heat treat. This thing is a spectacular slicer. I wish Klein Tools still made this in Seki City, Japan. You can actually find these on eBay. Unfortunately, they very often are really beaten up, but as you can see here, I put my own edge on this. I actually got a mirror edge on it, and unfortunately, yeah, somebody really was trying. It looks like they were trying to sharpen it or something, and yeah, more than a little went wrong. So it's nice and tight lock up. By the way, this is really a well-made knife. I only wish that I knew the OEM for this, because I would totally look for their other stuff if I knew. And finally, we have a knife that probably is famous because it was General Stormin Norman Schwarzkopf's favorite knife, was the Camillus Model 886. And the Camillus Model 886 actually does have a couple of advantages over your average Buck 110 copy, or Buck 110 competitor, I should say. And those are that we've got stainless steel bolsters, we have a full flat grind, and yes, this thing does slice great. Also, I'm not sure what kind of wood this is. It's actually really, really attractive. But yeah, this was made by Camillus in the 80s. And it is absolutely something that I consider to be worth it. It's also on the larger end of the Buck 110 style copies. So let's whoops. Okay, there we are. Safety first. Oh boy. All right. So I'm just going to move these away so I don't step on them or do something stupid. All right. So you may be wondering, okay, great. What's wrong with this? What is right with this? Well, let's start out with the good. The good is this blade, because they heat treated this thing really, really well. And the answer is yes, I did sharpen it. And by the way, it is 440C steel. And by the way, I have no reason to doubt them. I do believe that this is indeed real 440C. They're not lying about that. So that's pretty good, given that this knife is a $9 to $11 knife. Or at least it might sound good at first. And by the way, I should note that it is very well heat treated. So you do get legitimate, good 440C. That's the one thing that I cannot fault this thing for. Also, well, that's the sum total of the good. That you can get a 440C knife for $9.99. The bad is just about everything else relating to quality control and design of this knife outside of the blade. The blade is fine. There is nothing wrong with the blade. As a matter of fact, just to tell you what I put this thing through, I broke down one Amazon box, then I encountered a bit of trouble. Then I put on some level 5 cut-resistant gloves, and I proceeded to break down 3 more Amazon boxes, 2 Maytag boxes, and 4 USPS cardboard mailers. That speaks pretty highly to the blade. Now, as someone who does these kind of marathon cutting sessions with cardboard, that's nothing really all that special. That actually is reflective of my experience. The problem was that as this knife began slicing, it began falling apart. Now, what do I mean by falling apart? Well, watch this. We have vertical blade play, or at least what appears to be vertical blade play, because that's not really vertical blade play. It is, in fact, the play of the entire lock mechanism. Here, let me show you. Pay very careful attention to this as I was doing exactly that with the blade. Do you see how this is going up and down? That's play in the entire mechanism. That is not particularly good. Also, we can see that the back spring is off-centered. We have an enormous gap right there. I can, in fact, run my fingernail through there. And not the greatest finishing right there, but I mean, if it were just like that, then okay, whatever. But the problem is that, yeah, this is not really well finished or fitted. And if you look down here, you can see that this spring, because this is a piece of spring steel that attaches underneath the lock bar, you can see that it's actually beginning to deform. You can see how the light is reflecting off of it, and, you know, it's not quite, see how the light's reflecting off it? Okay. So, yeah, that top part, where my finger is directly over and my fingernail is pointing directly down into it, that part is beginning to deform. That is a real problem. And by the way, lest we think that is the only problem, well, as I said, that, you know, there is, you know, you do get some extra pins here. You get you get 2 pins on this side and 2 pins on this side, plus, this little lanyard hole. Well, if you look at it from the back here, you may be able to notice that this is cracked through to the pin right there. This is cracked through. And by the way, that is now a fairly sharp sliver waiting to happen. This part here has also cracked through to the pin. And it's not quite the sliver waiting to happen, because honestly, this was something that I expected to actually worsen to a point where I would not have been surprised had this actually come off, or part of this come off, and I was actually really worried about that, and that and not the blade is actually what stopped me. But yeah, you also have this crack here. As we can see, it is running completely through, and it does stop with the pin, but again, it's running completely through. This pin here is not cracked at all, and this pin here is beginning to show signs of stress, and that might be a crack right there. This pin right here, this is an optical illusion, don't worry. This, however, is not. This, I've noticed, has been getting a little bit worse as I have been using that knife. So what I'm worried about is this may also crack off. or perhaps crack through, and then, you know, some parts going to crack off. Now let's get the blade back out for a minute. Because while the edge was terrific and held up great, you can see here that there are a lot of scratches on this blade. Mind you, all I did was break down those boxes, and from those boxes, it got all those scratches. That has not happened to me with any other knife that I own. You can see the scratches in the hollow grind right there. Let's see. Okay, now you can see the scratches. They are, in my opinion, worse on this side. Also, there is a deformity in the blade spine where you can see right there how it takes this little dip right there. And that was from the factory. That's not from my use. But it just kind of goes to show you that this may not be the greatest quality controlled knife in the world, to put it mildly. Now, do I have anything against Grandway? No. As a matter of fact, if you want to order their stuff where their OEMs are Gonzo, are Sanren, are CH, Kenku, because those are great beater knives, go right ahead. I would encourage you to do that. The problem is when, you know, you're just hanging around with so many different OEMs, and, you know, one of them is Master Cutlery, and yeah, they've done their homework as far as putting 440C blade steel on here. In addition to putting 440C blade steel on here, what they've done is they've also done an excellent heat treat of it, but then they haven't really finished it properly, as we can see from all the scratches, and they've neglected the construction of the rest of this knife, as we can see from the cracks that are from the pins. Also, I should note that this pin, which holds the rocker in place, is beginning to drift over, which is to say, you can run your finger over it, and you can tell that it's kind of moving out and moving away from this side of the knife and moving toward this side of the knife. It's going that way. So unfortunately, the answer is no. Even for $10, I cannot recommend this knife whatsoever. I cannot recommend a knife where, if you're literally just cutting down cardboard, you get cracks in the handle. And by the way, this is Pack-a-wood of some sort. I know it says natural hardwood. It's Pack-a-wood. Trust me. This looks like the same kind of wood that I have on my laminated Soviet SKS stock, right down to the color of stain. So there you go. And again, we have this crack right there. Again, that is not safe. And also the deformations in this spring right there. Again, no. Yeah, the blade steel is good for the money, but you know what? If you went onto eBay and you bought something that's, you know, maybe a little bit used, but very much safe, like this Klein Tools 44037. You could probably get this for about $25. Admittedly, this is $10, and yes, this is $25, but you've got an AUS-8 steel blade, you've got a great heat treat on it, and you've got a knife that is basically indestructible. This is really, really well made. And all you really need to do to fix it is sharpen it. This is not well made at all. I hate to say it, but there you go. I mean, if you want a knife, save up at least $16, $17. Get an entry-level Sanrenmu. That's at least a safe knife. Or you know what? Maybe, you know, if you're willing to sharpen something, get an Ozark Trail flipper from Walmart. You're looking at a knife that costs $7 to $8. Yes, it is 3CR13. I am aware of that. But you know what? It's also safe. It's not going to break on you after all you're doing is cutting down boxes. As in, it is designed to hold together. This seems to have been designed with one thing in mind, the blade. And the rest, well, the rest was an afterthought. So for once, I cannot recommend this knife in any way, even for $10. You want something that does the exact same thing and does it much better? This is a Gonzo G729. You can get one of, it is a copy of the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. You can get one of these new off Amazon for roughly $23, $24. If you've got Amazon rewards points, you can get even less than that. And this is well heat treated 440C with a good mechanism. It's also a great cardboard slayer. Believe me, I've used it as one. Does it cost twice as much? Of course it does. But you know what? There comes a point where you have to say, okay, I'm going to pick blade steel or I'm going to pick reliability. I can't have both. At the $20 price range, well, you can have both. But at the $10 price range, you can't. You either have to pick, in this price range, something where you've either got a reliable and safe functioning knife, something from Ozark Trail would be perfectly fine, or alternately, you pick something like this where, yeah, they did a good heat treat on the blade, and they did a pretty decent blade steel, 440C, at the expense of the rest of the mechanism. So, unfortunately, I emailed I emailed John over at JO Ventures Outdoors. I emailed Ray, who provided the knife, at North Star Knife Reviews. And I emailed Tom over at Knife Delights, who is scheduled to get this knife next. And unfortunately, we agreed. We came to a universal conclusion that, unfortunately, this traveling knife would travel no more. This knife would go back to Ray over at North Star Knife Reviews and that is the end of it. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but I figured, at that time, I'd only broken down one box, and that's when that is when the lock mechanism basically started coming loose. And I was like, okay, something's really wrong. I got to let him know here. And I figured, let me see how well this thing holds up under a normal cardboard test. And the answer is it doesn't. It broke. And by the way, one other thing that I forgot to show you. Check out that side-to-side blade play. Which, by the way, is getting worse. I mean, you can see that right there. Just how bad that side-to-side play is. Now, granted, it had developed some side-to-side play when John had it over at J.O. Ventures Outdoors. It was nowhere near that bad. It was nowhere near that bad when it came to me. Now, if you are going to sit there and you are going to contend that breaking down 4 Amazon boxes, 4 USPS mailers, cardboard mailers, and 2 Maytag boxes is abuse of a knife, then I really don't know what to tell you. That is what I put all of my knives through. Whether they are, something that is top of the line that costs several $100s, or whether they are more in line with something like this. Again, just get a Gonzo or a Sanrenmu. This is not worth it. It's not worth the hassle, and it most certainly isn't worth the mechanism breaking on you. Because the answer is, it is my firm belief, based on the amount of blade play, vertical and side to side, that this is picking up, that if I were to break down 2 to 3 more Maytag boxes, I would actually break the knife. Which is pretty remarkable. This is not a well-constructed knife, and I have to give it a fail grade, an F. Unfortunately, it doesn't give me any pleasure to give this thing a bad grade. I really think it's actually a very attractive knife. But, I'm just trying to look out for anyone else who might have one of these or might be interested in buying one of these. I mean, you see 440C steel, and you see that it's only $10, and you figure, oh, well, who knows, maybe they just skimped on the steel. Well, no, they didn't. They didn't skimp on the steel. Quite the opposite. I would say that the steel is excellent. It's everything else. It is the mechanism, it is the construction, and it is the multiple things in the lock that they skimped on. And that, to me, is absolutely unacceptable. So this has been J.W. Greenbaum. Unfortunately, this knife will not be going on to Tom over at Knife Delights. Rather, it will be going back to Ray at North Star Knife Reviews. And I am now signing off and wishing you a great day.